Hello fellow readers, I'm Stephanie and welcome back to my channel. So recently I was glad to get out of this land of ice and snow and take a trip to someplace warm. And you know, when it's warm, when you're on a beach, you want to do some reading. So I read 4 books when I was in Mexico. I am here to give you a little recap of the books as well as some beautiful footage. So that being said, let's get started. The first book that I read on my vacation was Get a Life, Chloe Brown. This was like the least actual like beachy or like warm weather type of book that I took, but you know, a romance on a vacation next to the pool, like that's the dream, you know? So I read it for this vlog anyways. This story is all about Chloe Brown, who actually just moved out of her family's mansion, and she's trying to, as she puts it, get a life. And so she is typically a very like structured, list-oriented, like perfectionist type of person, and so she actually makes a list for herself of all these things that she wants to do that she would consider getting a life. And one of those things that she wants to do is do something bad. And so she actually teams up with Red, who is our other main character, and he is trying to help her complete some of these items on her list. This book is just like so cute. First of all, our main character, there's a lot of representation, first of all, and something that I don't know that I've ever read in a book or a main character before is that she has chronic pain. You get to see what like everyday life is like for her, and so I think that is very nice to add to the story, something that isn't discussed a lot, and so it just really brought a little bit extra, something extra to this book. Red, he actually comes from a previously abusive relationship, and for anyone who's looking for trigger warnings, it's not an active part of the book, but you know, it is something in his past that does come up, so just keep that in mind. But you know, it's great not only to see someone who's healing from that. Another thing that I definitely appreciate about this book is, so they start off not exactly getting along. It's not necessarily enemies, but you know, they're just not very fond of each other. And then, you know, throughout the book, you are having them hang out more to complete these items on the list. She is helping him because her business is like website design, and so she's helping him as well, and through that it's a romance, starting to fall in love. Another thing about this book that it might just be me not reading a lot in the romance genre yet, but something that I definitely noticed was it was quite steamy, and that is before they even touched each other. So if you get what I'm saying, that was just something that, like, I haven't read that much, all the like longing beforehand or, you know, whatnot. So that was an interesting aspect, something new to me in this genre. And so, you know, if they can bring the steam even before they even touch each other, you can imagine what it's like once they actually touch each other. At the end of the day, what I really loved about this book was just like how much they both like genuinely cared for each other. Like they cared about the well-being and the growth and development of each other, not only as a couple, but as individuals as well. And I certainly really appreciate that. So overall, it was like a super quick, easy read, and it was great. I ended up giving it a 4.0. The next book that I read was House in the Cerulean Sea, and I have a lot of thoughts about this book, so just hang with me for a little bit. This book is about our main character, whose name is Linus, and he works for this basically governmental unit called Dicamy, which is the department in charge of magical youth, and he basically is sent to all of these basically orphanages or like homes that keep magical youth for their own protection. They keep them all together away from the rest of the world, right? So he basically is like a social worker kind of job where he goes to all of these houses, he reviews them and like submits reports saying, hey, based on what I saw, like I think this should be shut down or like kept open or like whatever his analysis is, right? So that's his job. And this whole thing is about him going to this one house that is on the Cerulean Sea. It's very like found family and just like growth and development of our main character, heavy, and you know, just lots of characters with all these different children. First thing to note about this book is it has that very, like, I don't know exactly how to describe it, but like, I guess quirkiness of kind of like a children's book where like people are just like very extremes of their situations in themselves. For example, in this book, our main character, Linus, he is in just like this monotonous everyday life of being put down, and like his life is always the same. There's multiple times where like it's referred to that he's like so fat, and you know, like just everyday life is so dull. I think I even remember something about like it rains every day and he never brings an umbrella or like something like that, you know? So it's like just so extreme. I don't know what to call that. I don't know if that's necessarily like a negative or a positive in my eyes. It was just like a very interesting use of this literary device. One comment that I would have is that I loved the children and how they were all different, had different skills, but I wish that like more of the book was focused on them. Like I feel like we didn't actually get that much from a lot of the characters, and I kind of wanted more. And that's kind of surprising. Like I felt like it was a pretty long book, and so you know, I feel like it could have been like cut down for like how much we actually got from it. However, like I mentioned, the children, so cute. I love all their personalities. The ending, adorable. Like I mentioned, it's very found family, and so you have that like found family ending to it. And it's like exactly what I would have expected from the book going into it, you know? I feel like this is such a basic story of like that found family trope. So you know exactly what you're signing up for. You know exactly what's going to happen, basically. But you're there for the journey of the book. Just looking at all of these things that I've discussed so far, which is what I did for my rating. Unfortunately, I was not as enthralled and like in love with it as the rest of the world. Maybe it was just that it was too hyped up, or maybe not, I don't know. But basically I did give this a 3.5. Now, all of that being said, I do also want to acknowledge that this book has quite a bit of controversy around it that I don't think is really discussed much. I know that, it did come out a bit, and I've heard a couple people talk about it, but like not every review that I've seen has acknowledged that. And so I just want to throw this out there as well. So I feel like you can basically look at this book from two lenses. If you look at it from one lens, which I feel like a mass majority of people do, it's all about your found family, it's about acceptance. And if you read it through that lens, it's great. However, the controversial side of this is that this book was inspired by Canada's 60s scoop, is what it's called. I'd never heard of it before, this controversy, as I'm sure plenty of people have. The 60s scoop was all about basically Canada taking Indigenous children from where they were growing up, from their families, and putting them in homes like the home of magical youth in this book. The whole purpose of that was to get, white Canadians or white Europeans to adopt these children and assimilate them into their culture and their community, completely erasing the Indigenous culture. And if you look at this from that lens, it's a lot more of like a traumatic story. Next book I read was Malibu Rising, and like the ocean. Of course I had to read it while I was at the ocean. Synopsis of the book. Basically this book is about a family, and every year they throw this big party in Malibu, and it's all about them, their childhood, growing up, who they are now, and how their family dynamics have really shaped how their life is now. We have 4 kids who, all take on different positions in their life, or in the family, based on like kind of age and relation to each other. So this whole book is really just analyzing family dynamics. Right off the bat, I was a little disappointed in that like the story wasn't really told in any special way. After reading like Daisy Jones and the Six and Evelyn Hugo, I kind of expected there to be some kind of reporter or like something like that element for this book as well, especially because what I had understood of this book beforehand is basically that this family's lives change over this like one night of party, like 24 hours their lives are changed. And so I felt like that really could have been done well by a reporting instance. There could be a reporter interviewing them, there could be a reviewer interviewing their dad, maybe it could even be like a police report. There could have been some special aspect to this book, but there wasn't. And so I was a little bit disappointed in that. However, I will give it points. The format of this book, it did really remind me of like the guest list, where there were a ton of different characters that were getting their different perspectives on, and so each chapter is like kind of told by a different character again. And then also it does flip times as well, so you'll go from the past to the present, to the past to the present. I think because there was so much family drama and like so much happening, that it definitely like kept me interested throughout the entire book. I don't think it was like too long or too short. Like I think it definitely kept me interested the entire time. I think I ended up giving this one a 3.5. The last book that I could not do without was beach read. Obviously, on a beach, reading beach read. So, perfect book for this. This book is a romance between our two characters. They basically went to college with each other, had a little bit of like student rivalry in college, and they are now grown up and they end up living right next to each other for a certain period of time. They are both authors, and basically they start this bet that each of them have to write like the other and then see how their books do. First of all, this book definitely gave me like, clearly there was that like misunderstanding, kind of student rivalry from their school days, but they really like quickly grew into this friendship, and then that friendship developed into a romance. So it was very like just a nice progressive like relationship build throughout, and I really enjoyed that. I liked having that history between the two characters and then like slowly growing into something more. Not only do I think it did well with the growth for the romance or for their careers, but I also think it just like did a really good job with the characters like growth as a whole. I think that they both throughout the book like dealt with some stuff and did grow from it. The only negative that I had for this book is that they didn't actually spend that much time on the beach. Basically they like live on a beach, but like they don't spend that much time on it. So for like a book that's titled Beach Read and has like two people laying on towels on the beach, like there just wasn't enough beach for me. I ended up rating this one a 3.75. Those were all the books that I read while I was on a beach in Mexico enjoying my vacation. Overall, I'm like really pleased with all of these books. I like genuinely actually enjoyed reading all of them. There wasn't one that I was like, I regret reading this. So I think overall it was A, a good trip, and B, a good time. If you liked this video, go ahead and like and subscribe down below and leave a comment telling me where is the #1 place that you want to travel to. Until next time, keep reading!